meeting now for the next little while. So we're bringing Kaler because it's that time where we get to talk USL Championship, USL League One with Kaler from at Kaler Hodges at the USL Show. Kaler, what is up? And I'm noticing that you have changed allegiances with your shirt. Did you lose a bet?
I have said this on the USL Show. We've all said it on the USL Show. I can and will be bought. So send free things. I wear free things.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I mean, I know where this. So please explain for those that have not been keeping up to date. So basically, Charleston sent you a care package. Is that how this works?
When they came down to Birmingham earlier this year, wonderful, wonderful friend of our show and just friend of the USL in general, Ben Clemens, kind of hooked me up. And honestly, it's one of my favorite kind of pullovers in general. It's super soft.
Okay.
The material's great, and it looks almost professional enough that I don't get in trouble at school.
Okay. All right. So, and I'm down with that. I understand where you're going, and especially this time of year where, you got to kind of have to dress, I think, two separate ways for when you go into work and when you've got to come out of work. It's going to be two separate temperature changes. You got to get ready for all that stuff. So no, I completely empathize, understand, and commiserate with you. If it's free, it's me, and I definitely will wear it. Before we get into the actual games themselves, yesterday we had an announcement from a team that you had said has been sleepwalking through the 2024 season, and the man in charge now is being shown the door for a team that sleepwalked.
Sure.
It's going to be a coaching change in Sacramento, something that I would not have anticipated coming into this year.
The only way it makes sense for me is if Coach Briggs, whom you are alluding to, getting this what it appears to be the sack, mutually agreed to terminate the contract, whatever.
Yes, mutually agreed to part ways. Yes,
I think just legalese. I think the mutually agreed is mutually agreeing on a severance package. I think that's what that actually means. If I was to explain that correctly,
sure.
The only way it makes sense is if he has another job lined up.
Okay.
That's the only way it makes sense. If not, Kevin Nagel and co out in Sacramento could not see, as I put on Twitter, X 240 character app.
Yes.
They could not see the forest through the nursery like 3 countries over, because you're missing Roro Lopez, who they were not the same after him. Jack Gurr, my MVP vote from last year, and he was up there this year, was hurt at the end of the season. You also missed Cicerone for a long time, one of the best forwards in the league.
Sacramento treat. Yes, Russell Cicerone.
Yes. And if you're going to tell me that you're going to miss those key players, your heart and soul of your team, the league MVP, in my opinion, and one of the best forwards in the league, yes, you have other players that are quality. I just don't get it. The only thing that makes sense is if he wanted out or if he had another job lined up. If not, Sacramento absolutely screwed this up completely.
Harry, who joins us on the YouTubes every morning, he says, not sure anyone had Briggs being let go from Sac Rep. Would love to see him land in San Antonio.
I mean, I think right now, again, if he doesn't have a job lined up, Mark Briggs is definitely the biggest coaching free agent we've had since Ben Pierman in just all of all U.S. soccer.
Oh, wow.
I have a feeling he has a massive bidding list on him, both in the States and all over the world, because everybody knows he's a fantastic coach. Everyone knows. And again, it just makes no sense to me, but I have a feeling that his price tag is getting higher and higher every single hour that he's awake.
Harry also mentions a local discussion for you.
Yes.
Legion needs to make a move as well.
I mean, yeah, I think that it was time for Legion to make a move. And I don't mean Tommy Stone, the head coach of Birmingham Legion, to get fired. I actually think that he is a primary reason why Legion get the players that they do.
Mhm.
But I think him moving to a director of football role and letting someone a la Connor Smith get, the promotion would have been the correct thing to do. It made sense. He was an up and coming coach. I think your next best bet, again, assuming that Briggs doesn't have another job, is you open up the pocketbooks, tell Tommy, hey, man, thank you for being on the sideline, be the director of football, scout the players, sign the players. You know how to do that. You're really good at it. Let him coach your team. I think that that is what you have to do at this point. That, or, if the ownership feels that Tommy Sohn is the right coach, then it's their time to open up the pocketbooks and sign better players, because there are two options. The coach wasn't good enough or the players weren't good enough. And either way, you have to open up pocketbooks to change that.
How silly do you anticipate, since we're in this topic, how silly do you anticipate silly season being when it comes to coaches in USL Championship and League One?
Ridiculous. Like, completely ridiculous. I think with coaching vacancies in San Antonio, Sacramento, you're going to see coaches, like you kind of see, we'll talk about them later with Union Omaha
Yes.
being one of the best coaches in the league, understands the USL championship as a assistant coach in El Paso under Lowry, who is again one of the better coaches in this country. I think that's going to be interesting. I think, especially with Hackworth in St. Louis, kind of changing roles, I would not be shocked if there is one Danny Cruz who makes his way over to St. Louis. I think we talked about that one before.
Yeah.
And if Louisville opens up, I mean, we have seen in just signing players, I mean, they broke the USL transfer record in getting Goodrum, and he's arguably not even the best striker on the team, but they can because they can.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, when you got the outbound that you have, you can afford the inbound that you get.
Exactly. And so I think when you are looking at all that, I think that if something happens with Danny Cruz, if he gets that jump, you are about to see the merry-go-round in USL be absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, how ridiculous are we talking here? Because all right, so let me go to the grid so we can look at the grid. We'll break it down this way. So I know that, and we have said, and you have said, and we have said both independently and together, that you look at Lou City and you look at Danny Cruz and you're like, well, why have you not pursued Danny Cruz? I mean, is it the fact that Danny enjoys where he is and you want to be like the top dog where you are, or do you want another challenge? That kind of a thing. You look at, I mean, the Miami FC, I mean, to say they're a dumpster fire is probably offensive to dumpsters at some point. You got that, but then you have that gaggle right there in that group that we're talking about in the East. Loudoun, Hartford, Birmingham, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Rhode Island, Indy, Detroit, Charleston, Louisville. How crazy is it? That, I think looking at this, it looks like it's going to be more crazy in the West than it would be in the East.
I think it all depends on that Louisville City domino.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in all reality, you're looking at, if something changes in Lou City, then everything else is basically going to come to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
I think that if things stay the same in Lou City, you're really just looking at replacing someone in Miami, and, judging by the way they did the offseason last year, maybe they'll just get someone on the cheap and just go on. The West is going to be a madhouse, and because it always is, it's a simulation. It's none of it's real. And I also would not be shocked if someone goes in for a James Chambers or goes in down to New Mexico and gets some of those coaches. I think that you could see a lot of spaces open up in the West. Meanwhile, in the East, it feels pretty set, again, unless the big domino in Lou City, or, as I'm wearing the shirt, if someone comes in for a Ben Pierman, because there's no doubt that he is one of the hottest prospects in the country as well. I think when we talk about Danny Cruz's and you talk about Ben Pierman's and, you talk about the other coaches, more so Cruz and Pierman, why would they ever leave to become an assistant?
Yeah.
Why would they ever do that? They're too good of a coach, and they know that they are too good of coaches to be someone's assistant.
And that to me is the larger point in all of this is you have talented coaches at USL Championship who can either go elsewhere in that league, go to another division in another country, or as we have kind of targeted that all caps gig right there in St. Louis, where if they don't consider John Hackworth to be a part of the discussion, would Lutz Pfannenstiel sit there and say, yeah, okay, I want to bring in somebody, but the Red Bullsian way that we see with St. Louis City SC doesn't necessarily fit what Danny Cruz would want to do. Would somebody like a Lutz Pfannenstiel, the technical director in St. Louis, sit there and turn over the keys, considering that they built it under Bradley Carnell to be Red Bullsian in its DNA? That would be my larger question about anybody to chase after that St. Louis gig.
Yeah. Don't really have an answer for that one, to be honest.
Could
ifs.
Yeah, I know. Would Pfannenstiel want to turn the keys over philosophically? That's the biggest thing. Wilmer Cabrera's coming back for another year in El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
You saw new coach bump. Then you saw them kind of level out a little bit after the early excitement, and then they won. They were unbeaten in 3 of their last 5, heading to the finish line. I figure this is it's a safe play for El Paso, considering you have what you would expect with Wilmer. He has his he has his pipeline. He has his players. He has his style. So I think that this is probably the safest thing that El Paso could do. Is that the right word?
I mean, our friend Phil, who's on Seriously Loco, just one of the better just USL personalities out there, made a kind of a good point. And is Wilmer Cabrera the right man for the job? Probably not. Is he the man that they need right now? Yes. They need stability. El Paso needs stability. They run through coaches like crazy. They've been searching for that Mark Lowry high again, and they're willing to splash the cash. You saw it when they brought in, last coach. Wasn't Claire out? Maybe it was Claire out. Can't remember his name now. But
it was with Brian Clare out, wasn't it?
Yes. And they spent a lot of money, and it didn't work. So they're going to invest in the roster, and they've shown that. They need coaching consistency, because even though it's not what El Paso fans want to hear, or maybe it's exactly what they want to hear, 8th place in the West is a massive improvement. It's a far cry from winning the Players' Shield. But 8th place is consistency. And Wilmer Cabrera can and almost certainly will get you 8th place, which is what they need right now. And if that kind of stabilization is what El Paso needs, then Wilmer Cabrera can do that. The question is are you hiring for the next 2 years, or are you hiring for the next 5? Because that's a different conversation between Wilmer and not Wilmer.
Well, and you look at how things were at the end of the year. They were 4 decisions away, basically 3 wins and a draw, from being in the playoffs. I mean, they finished 10 points after that awful start. And I mean, it was awful. They shook it off. Wilmer came in, and you were 10 points away from the play. And 10 points, that's 3 wins. Literally, it's 3 wins and a draw. That's where they came from, and that's how close they were after that horrendous start to get in as an 8th seed in the Western Conference under Wilmer Cabrera.
Yeah, I mean, he brings in consistency. There is no world where they should have ended where they did. I mean, it just doesn't. From where they started, you saw the dumpster fire. You saw it all coming apart, and there's no world where it felt like it should have ended as strongly as it did, despite the talent on the pitch. It feels like you just need to have someone who can just steady the ship, and that's what they have.
Okay. So then the other teams that did not make the playoffs in the West, San Antonio, we know about Marcina. They're looking. FC Tulsa, Monterey Bay, and then you get into the Phoenix Rising, Oakland Roots discussion, Orange County, our buddy Andy King, who comes in and hangs out in the Twitch pitch. I mean, to go up as high as 5th when it comes to a coaching change in Sacramento, I mean, you mentioned how it's going to be upside down crazy nuts. So of Orange County, Oakland, Phoenix, Tulsa, Monterey Bay. Yeah, no surprises. Anything else laying in your head when it comes to coaching changes, considerations, that kind of a thing?
I'm pretty sure Monterey Bay just signed Jordan Stewart to be their new manager. Like,
Okay.
actually, not an interim. I think he's their new manager. So see what he can do. Give him his time. Apparently they are in trying to make moves early, so that's something to look out for.
Okay.
Tulsa, you have Mario Sanchez. I I don't know what Tulsa wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
They had a vision. Their vision got signed by USL front office and he left. And after that, the other part of the vision went to MLS to be an assistant coach. I don't know if Mario Sanchez is who FC Tulsa wants to be, but if it is, then stick with it. That's who you are. Obviously, San Antonio has to do something. Phoenix, I I don't know what Phoenix is. I don't know again who Phoenix wants to be because I mean they put on a heck of a showing in this playoff game
Mm-hmm.
and they got hot at the right time and they still have the fear factor in them. But is what's wrong with them coaches or poor scouting? Like, what is Phoenix's issue? I think they're going to have to look internally and say what's going on. Obviously, Sacramento, we've talked about. Orange County, I think they got their guy. I think that they're going to, and maybe they already signed him, and I just don't remember. But
Mm-hmm.
Danny Stone feels like the guy that's going to be the right person for them. Um, for Oakland, I love Gavin Clinton. I think Gavin is awesome. I think he's a great guy, but
It's like you set it up, and I was waiting for the conjunction. But
I don't know if he is ambitious enough for what Oakland wants to be. And the question again comes down to just like with Birmingham, is the ambition not in the ownership or is it not with Glinton? And if the answer is we like Glinton, but the players weren't good enough, well, Oakland open up the pocketbooks. You tell us how much money you've raised through fan ownership. Spend some of it. Do it.
okay, so that is USL Championship.
Mhm.
How bonkers would you anticipate it being down in League One, or is it pretty much going to be a status quo, top to bottom? You think?
I think it comes down to Union Omaha, and are you going to end up having your coach gone? I think that's what it comes down to. Is does Union Omaha keep their coaching staff around? If they do, then I think it's going to be fairly status quo. I think everything's going to largely stay the same. The other conversation is maybe Northern Colorado
Mm-hmm.
on what's going on with them in general. Are they going to offload? And Zayed is another hot coaching commodity
Understood.
that I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a call up to a USL championship team this year. But I don't know if that's going to necessarily rock the boat in terms of USL League One, because with the financial issues in Northern Colorado, they might frankly just kind of be crap anyway, because who knows how much money they can spend.
Yeah. Since you opened that door, let's go there. We talked about the situation on this show about Northern Colorado before, and we've done required reading for
Mhm.
local investigations about what's going on up there at Four Rivers and that whole complex. There were published reports that they were having problems meeting payroll at points this season, that the league was helping out because that's where the leagues has the emergency contingency fund, or whatever you want to call it, where they can sit there and help out in situations like this. From what you have been able to glean from your sources and your information elements, what is the situation up there at Four Rivers? How dire is it? And with teams coming in, does that offset what may or may not happen with hailstorm? How bad is it, basically, from what you've been able to glean?
I mean, reading tea leaves and reading between the lines of interviews that coaches and players have done, it's all but confirmed all the rumors that you've heard that players, coaches, whatever, they never outright said they weren't getting paid, but they mentioned hardships that were happening behind closed doors, and that lines up very well with the rumors. You see that a judge pretty much stopped the attempt to shut down the Future Legends complex.
Yeah.
So the bankruptcy judge basically said, no, you're not getting out of this one, which means NOCO has to kind of exist for them to get any money back.
Yeah.
They can't shut down the team
Mm-hmm.
to try to do that. Now the question is will they possibly go down to League Two, a la Tucson, FC Tucson,
Right.
to try to save money on wages and continue to build, and then when they can stable enough to come back to League One, they do that. Tucson hasn't done that yet, even though they were only supposed to be gone for a year. So you can see how scary of a proposition that can be. But judging by the financial issues they have, you have two options: be the cheapest team in League One or drop to League Two, because you're not going to get out of building the stadium. You're not allowed. The
Yeah.
judge said no. So you might as well try to recoup any money that you can.
Yeah. Keep an eye on that for us as we go forward. A question from Harry down in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Any chance Lilly gets moved from Pittsburgh? He is one of the GOATs, but for Pittsburgh, do they try to move on to see if they can take the next step?
Pittsburgh needs to look in the mirror and realize that their pocketbooks are the issue. Stop trying to be the Tampa Bay Rays and do everything on the cheap, because they know that Lilly can make anybody good.
Mm-hmm.
They
See the
know
second
that.
half of this season.
Yes. And they know that. So they don't spend money because they know that they will make the playoffs, a la Tampa Bay Rays. But
Mm-hmm.
guess what? Like the Rays, they haven't won. They haven't won at all. And because guess what? Payroll matters. The best players matter. And I think if they move on from Bob Lilly
Mm-hmm.
and keep the same payroll, good luck being bottom dwellers for the rest of your time, because you're not getting a Bob Lilly. If they managed to move on from him, if they said that it's your time and it was not his choice, and they don't open up the pocketbook, it's not going to be good for the Riverhounds. And I think they know that.
Getting into the playoffs, well, it's time for our bracketology part, since we have now gone into the second half with you at Kaylor Hodges at the USL show. When's broadcasting, by the way, for the at the USL show?
9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday night.
See, there we go. All right. So in the East, no shock, but it was a tight one, as you had anticipated. You thought that maybe the 8 could nip the 1, but they didn't. Lou City advances to take on Rhode Island FC. J.J. Williams hat trick. I did not have that in the bingo card as a way for Rhode Island to knock off Indy. Thought that might happen in the 4-5, that Rhode Island would advance. They do with J.J. Williams. Tampa Bay, the 3-6, they go to Keyworth and get the win. That, I think, was probably one of the surprise results of the weekend in USL Championship. And then Charleston in the 2-7 gets the win. So it's Lou City hosting Rhode Island FC and Tampa Bay going to Charleston.
Yeah, I had, if people want to go back, and I've even said this on the show, I only had one lock of the week. I thought that everybody was on upset alert except for Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
That was my only lock, and I was wrong, because there is something about playoff Jordan Farr that is ridiculous. I mean, he is just one of those big time players. He just seems to do it at the biggest, like the highest level. It's so impressive. And for them to hold off a Detroit City team that really had Tampa Bay on their heels, I thought that was great. I saw kind of this North Carolina result coming. A lot of people said that Blue City was going to thrash North Carolina. I begged them to watch any of the matchups they had against each other, because that's just not the case. North Carolina is one of the best teams to match up against Lou City, but Lou City prevails because Lou City prevails. That's what they do. Rhode Island, I think a lot of people saw that coming. in terms of winning, but Indy put up more of a fight than I thought they would. I didn't have a JJ Williams hat trick in my book either, but arguably Zach Haribo was the best player in that match. He's not going to get the flowers of a hat trick, and obviously why. But Zach Haribo created almost all of that. Same with Noah Fuson, who is so good. And I think that you are left with, barring Detroit City, but we're getting a really good version of Tampa Bay right now. You're getting the heavyweights out in the East. I think these are the teams that when you looked into the playoffs and said, who are the scariest teams that you don't want to play in the playoffs, you're getting them all in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and that's awesome for the league.
No doubt. You got all the blue bloods, Lou City, Tampa Bay, Charleston, and the new kids in Rhode Island. On the left-hand side of the bracket, you've got New Mexico United. They come through. Miquele Akale gets the late winner. So he goes from Tormenta to New Mexico United and continues to shine, going up a level in USL Championship. So New Mexico United goes through, knocking off Phoenix Rising. Vegas in the 4-5 might have been the last straw probably for Briggs in Sacramento, losing in the 4-5. So Vegas goes through. See what happens when you invest. And then low left, it took a while, but Orange County got the goal in AET, I believe is the abbreviated time. And so Memphis goes away in the 3-6. Colorado Springs, they knock off Oakland in the 2-7. So it was chalky except for that one matchup where it took more than 90 minutes for Orange County to get the win, and they have to go to Widener Field in beautiful downtown Colorado Springs on the western side.
I mean, let's just start off with Memphis. I think I called this one where I said that Memphis can win if they can keep all 11 men on the field, but they can never do that. And guess what? Bye-bye, Marlon. You're down to 10 men. That's just what Memphis does. They score goals, they get stuck in, but they forgot to score goals. Like this Orange County team, and I mentioned it last week, are really good defensively. And honestly, the fact that Memphis did not ship 3 goals is the shock for me in this game, because that's just kind of what they do as well. And I think this match went exactly how I thought it would. The people voted, and I think it was 60-something% thought that Orange County was going to win. They kind of saw the tea leaves on that one. For New Mexico, I was the only one on the show that said New Mexico was going to win, because I'll be honest, everybody saw their form coming into the playoffs, but that was also when they locked up the first overall seed.
Yeah.
Why would I kind of hate to say it, but why would you not sleepwalk if you're not playing for literally anything? You can't win the player shield. You can't go any lower. What are you playing for? To not get hurt? Like, it makes sense to me. Phoenix pushed them. We got our version of this playoffs Zapruder film where people are zooming in trying to see if it crossed the line or not. I think it did. I think it's a good call.
But if it's inconclusive, you can't flip it.
Yes. And so people are like zooming in and it's like, see, no, did not go across the line. And I just stand by that there was a second ball in the grassy knoll. That's all I say.
Wow.
And then let me see. I'm trying to go through all the other ones. Las Vegas. Like they survive. They go through penalties. They survive it. And again, it just shows you how far they've come. Rico Rosarena has come up big for them. Again, he had a stretch where it was pretty obvious that Sanchez did not trust him to be his starting goalkeeper, which is why they brought in Marks. But time and time again, Rico comes through, and I'm very excited. I can already give you a little bit of a spoiler. The people are heavily voting Las Vegas over New Mexico.
Really?
It is a heavy favorite from the people over Las Vegas, New Mexico. I can't help but disagree. But again, that's what happens when you're the 1 versus the 4. It makes sense for me to, I guess, disagree with that by looking at obvious results to me.
All right. So now as we kind of look through things here with the semis, I know I'm probably spoiling a little bit of your content. Yeah. I'm looking at New Mexico. I'm looking at chalk in the West, and I'm looking at chalk in the East. I know that I'm real exciting that way. I'm thinking Lou City, Charleston, New Mexico United, and Colorado Springs to make it through.
The only one is Colorado Springs,
You're looking at the
Orange
hot six.
County.
You're looking at the hot six.
A little bit, especially this is an Orange County that's been the hot six before when they won it all.
Okay.
Like, this is a club that has the history of it. They're scoring, like, they're starting to score, and defensively, they are stout. I think that's going to be your upset. I think there's a world where Tampa Bay walks in and gives Charleston a scare, but I just can't go against Nick Marcanic. Just can't do it. I think if you're looking at a real upset alert, it is going to be Rhode Island, Lou City.
Really?
I mean, again, they were missing a lot of players that were coming off a hard stretch. I understand the context of the match. Rhode Island still won 5-2 Inland Family earlier this year.
It's true.
Say whatever you want about whatever. Like, we didn't have our best players. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. We were coming off a horrible road trip, and that's all true. But you can't take away the confidence that gave Rhode Island.
Yeah.
They're not afraid of Lynn Family Stadium whatsoever.
Nope.
And that's half of the fear of Lou City is fearing Lou City, and they don't. I think that if you're looking at any upset, it is going to be this Rhode Island Lou City. I say that, and this is probably going to be where Lou City says, screw that, screw them.
Screw you, Taylor Hodges.
And they're going to win like 5-0 because, again, that's what Lou City does. But Rhode Island is not afraid of Lynn Family, and I think that should scare Louisville.
In League One, left-hand side with chalk, Los Bujos make their way through, and once again, Lagos Kunga seems to be thriving in USL League One for Union Omaha. They're going to play Greenville in the 4-5. Forward Madison in the 3-6 knocks off Charlotte, and then you had your one shocker. Spokane goes to Four Rivers and knocks off Northern Colorado.
The people were wrong on this one.
Wow.
On our fan vote, 95.9% of people had Northern Colorado winning that game, and Spokane killed them.
Wow.
It's not going to continue. Ford Madison's going to win, but it's a cool story. Meanwhile, like, the people were also wrong about Greenville. I voted Greenville. I thought they were going to move on, but I mean, one Knox proved a fight, but death taxes Liam McKinnon. He is Golden Boot winner for a reason. Like, that's what he scores goals. I think this is kind of the matchups, barring a little bit of Spokane winning, that as a fan you wanted to see, because you get one of the bigger rivalries, barring your Henny Derby. Except for the Henny Derby, you get the biggest rivalry in the league, which is Union Omaha versus Greenville. Greenville will travel for this. They're going to have an away contingency.
Ooh.
And on the other hand, you almost had Northern Colorado versus Ford Madison, a Jägermeister rematch, which would have been just so good. I think that we are going to be looking at Ford Madison in the final for a second straight final of a Jägermeister USL Jägermeister USL League One final. Greenville, Omaha, I don't know.
Wow.
You want to sit there and say Union Omaha.
Yeah.
Because obviously, but this is a good Greenville team who's finally getting hot again. They're getting their confidence back. And this is a rivalry game. They know that there's a belt on the line. I understand that people will say the belt doesn't go over in the playoffs. Yet everybody knows that this is a rivalry game. Whether the belt changes hands or not, who cares? It's going to be a rivalry game. I think that away contingency is going to give Greenville a lot of confidence.
Reedy River Riot. Say it 10 times fast. All right, one more time before you turn into a pumpkin and have to go back to work. What's the USL show? Give me the times.
It is. The USL show goes live every Tuesday. Podcast gets uploaded the next morning. USL show live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or check it on every single podcast platform the next morning. It's a lot of P's. Never going to work for me.
No doubt. As always, my friend, great to see you during the playoffs. Great to see you during regular season as well. But these weekly things where we get to keep up on everything USL Championship and League One. Great to see you, my friend. And don't get in any trouble. If I kept you from any kind of work, blame me. Just sit there and like, look, meeting ran long. I don't know what happened. They just kept talking. They wouldn't shut up. So blame the meeting, and we'll catch up with you next week, my friend.
See you next week.
There goes Kaler. So tonight, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, go to at the USL show, and you can listen to them, watch them, and have all of the in